how are we all doing today? My name is David Gugino, and in today's book review, I have another re-review. And the re-review that I have is based on your performance on what you do outside of your business. Basically on how you work. Because as crazy as it sounds, how we work or how we function is how our business grows, how our YouTube channel grows, and how we even grow muscles in the gym is based on how we work. Now when it comes to working, we may have the mentality to do it, but how focused are you and how deep can you go into your work to get a lot done in a less amount of time, to get a lot done when you have no time? So kind of finding that not only happy medium, but when it matters the most, to get most done, to get whatever done you can, if that makes sense. Now the book that I have for us today for a re-review is Deep Work by Cal Newport. Now Cal Newport is a pretty famous author. He writes books like this and gives a very detailed look on how you work, how you should invest, how you should make money through your business. Some of it's self-betterment, but a lot of it is literally directions and guides on how to focus more and how to make more money with whatever you're doing in life. Now, it says on the front here, rules for focused success in a distracted world. Because to be honest, I haven't really said this in my videos, but we don't know how distracted we are. It's like with doom scrolling. I haven't said it like that, but doom scrolling, you could scroll for hours and not even realize 2 hours have gone by. With doing this, I could be watching a show and not realize, wow, I've watched an hour of my show when I could have been doing this. But when it comes to deep work, it's having the deep focus so you get the task done and not take a lot of breaks. Don't be looking at your phone in between stuff, just to where you work, and then you work along enough to where, like, you know what, my break will consist of watching 30 minutes of a show, taking a 30-minute nap, and then we go right back to work. So, kind of finding that happy medium and that work ethic we all need in order to be successful. So we're going to dive into the book here. So, deep work is valuable. Now, listen to what he has to say here about labeling. Think about that labeling. Listen to this. But at the same time, don't be too hasty to label your job as necessarily non-deep. Just because your current habits make deep work difficult doesn't mean that this lack of depth is fundamental to doing your job well. In the next chapter, for example, I will tell the story of a group of high-powered management consultants who were convinced that consistent email connectivity was necessary for them to service their clients. The rule of specificity should be applied to similar counterexamples that come to mind while reading the rest of this book. We must continually remember certain corners of our economy where depth is not valued. To executives, we can also include, for example, certain types of salesmen and lobbyists for whom constant connection is their most valued currency. There are even those who manage to grind out distracted success in fields where depth would help. Now think about that. There are even those who manage to grind out distracted success in fields where depth would help. But don't be too hasty to label your job as necessarily non-deep. So, for example, my job is I'm running a machine making rolls of plastic outside of doing this. Now, there can be mental stress. There can be times where our plastic's not good and I have to contact a higher up about it. There's times where our machine breaks down, I have to fix it. Now that can be very deep, but not deep as in, if you're a waitress at a restaurant, your job is taking orders and giving them their food in a timely manner and being polite and treating them as if they're putting them first before you. Now, that is a very good way to label a waiter, but as in, it can be deep at times. You gotta find out how to be quick. You gotta find out when you get tables sat at the same time, how to get to all of them quickly so no one gets agitated or even leaves. Then you gotta find out, well, their food's taking a while, I already given them refills, how can you keep them happy because they're eventually gonna get agitated because their food's not there. So it can be deep like that, but you also do not label your life or your worth in life by your job. And that's the thing that I want to talk about most. Do not label your worth in life from what job you have. Your job is important. I don't care if it's flipping burgers. We need someone to flip burgers. I don't care if it's serving tables. We need people to serve food. It's just, you do not label your worth by what your job is in the United States of America, because we need you at that job. And honestly, you're put there for a reason. Like I've said before, God would have not put you there if it wasn't for a reason. So think about that that I have in this book is inspiration. It's about inspiration, but it's about waiting on inspiration. So listen to this. This strategy suggests the following. To make the most out of your deep work sessions, build rituals of the same level of strictness and idiosyncrasy as the important thinkers mentioned previously. There's a good reason for this mimicry. Great minds like Caro and Darwin didn't deploy rituals to be weird. They did so because success in their work depended on their ability to go deep again and again. There's no way to win a Pulitzer Prize or conceive a grand theory without pushing your brain to its limits. Their rituals minimize the friction in this transition to depth, allowing them to go deep more easily and stay in the state longer. If they had instead waited for inspiration to strike before settling into serious work, their accomplishments would likely have been greatly reduced. There's no one correct deep work ritual, the right fit. There's no one correct deep work ritual. The right fit depends on both the person and the type of project pursued. But there are some general questions that any effective ritual must address. Where you'll work and for how long. Your ritual needs to specify location for your deep work efforts. This location can be as simple as your normal office with the door shut and desk cleaned off. A colleague of mine likes to put a hotel-style do not disturb sign on his office door when he's tackling something difficult. If it's possible to identify a location used only for depth, for instance, a conference room or quiet library, the positive effect can be even greater. If you work in an open office plan, this need to find a deep work retreat becomes particularly important. Regardless of where you work, be sure to also give yourself a specific time frame to keep the session a discrete challenge, and not an open-ended slog. How you'll work once you start to work. Your ritual needs rules and processes to keep your efforts structured. For example, you might institute a ban on any internet use or maintain a metric such as words produced by 20-minute interval to keep your concentration honed. Without this structure, you'll have to mentally litigate again and again. What you should and should not be doing during these sessions and keep trying to assess whether you're working sufficiently hard, these are unnecessary drains on your willpower reserves. How you'll support your work. Your ritual needs to ensure your brain gets the support it needs to keep a level of depth. For example, the ritual might specify that you start with a cup of good coffee, or make sure you have access to enough food of the right type to maintain energy, or integrate light exercise such as walking to help keep the mind clear. As Nietzsche said, it is only ideas gained from walking that have any worth. This might also include environmental factors, such as organizing the raw materials of your work to minimize energy dissipating friction, as we saw with Caro's example. To maximize your success, you need to support your efforts to go deep. At the same time, the support needs to be systemized so that you don't waste mental energy figuring out what you need in the moment. So yes, that was a lot, but listen to what he says here. At the same time, the support needs to be systemized so that you don't waste mental energy figuring out what you need in the moment. So it's kind of like if you're editing, make sure you have your editing tools, and if you're writing a script, make sure you have your writing tools, and don't just be like, oh wow, I forgot my pen or forgot extra paper, now I gotta go find it, and then before you know it, oh wow, I need this, and then it's just going to go back and forth. Find a way to get all your items. Find a way to continue to use your items for the longest time so you know when to get new ones, so you don't have to stop what you're doing to go get new ones. And then think of how you work. Think of how long you're going to work. Think of how fast you're going to go. Think of what you're going to focus on. And then think of how you'll support your work with kind of what I just mentioned. See, people don't think about this when you work. Because the reason people I don't think work as much as they do is because they think their job requires no deep thought, and they believe, some of them believe they're the center of their own universe, but they also just don't know how to work and do well in a company. Because they get stressed, they can't handle pressure. So that's the thing with life, you have to handle pressure and you have to handle stress. My job can be stressful. Now sometimes I don't smile at my job and sometimes I'm mad, but I point out what I have to do to fix the problem and what I have to do to create more product, or at least some good product by the end of the day. So Find out your support system, how it's systemized, and the inspirational thing that I wanted to bring up here is you cannot wait on information to get to serious work. You just can't. It will not happen. You will wait and wait for someone to give you that push, and that push is nice, that little push of confidence, but when it comes to work, some people get that push of confidence, they'll get all hyped up about it, and then it will go away within less than a day. That is why it is your responsibility. There's no correct deep work ritual. The right fit depends on both the person and the type of project pursued. So, tools. And this little section is when we think about tools, we think about the things we need to improve our deep work. And something that I should have said at the beginning of this video, it is a fundamental fact, as in it's been used many years, for hundreds of years. In order to be successful, you have to know how to work. And when I say know how to work, it requires no talent to work hard. It requires no education to work hard. However, it does require a mentality and problem solving as to how to work efficiently in order to be successful. Because I just got off a 12-hour shift. I got off a 12-hour shift, I went to the gym, and now I'm here doing this. Now, this only takes maybe 20-30 minutes sometimes, but you gotta think, I did all of that, and I still managed to do this. But you gotta know how to work, and you gotta know how to do it well. Whatever you're doing in life, at least do it well. So listen to this here. The next step in this strategy is to consider the network tools you currently use. For each such tool, go through the key activities you identified and ask whether the use of the tool has a substantially positive impact or a substantially negative impact. A little impact on your regular and successful participation in the activity. Now comes the important decision. Keep using this tool only if you concluded that it has substantial positive impacts and that these outweigh the negative impacts. To help illustrate this strategy in action, let's consider a case study. For the purposes of this example, assume that Michael Lewis, if asked, would have produced the following goal and corresponding important activities for his writing career. Professional goal: to craft well-written, narrative-driven stories that change the way people understand the world. Key activities supporting this goal: research patiently and deeply. Research patiently and deeply. Write carefully and with purpose. So those are not physical tools, but they're mental tools. Research patiently and deeply, and write carefully and with purpose. See, that's the thing with goals. You have to be very specific on your goals. You also have to be very specific on how you want to work. You can't just be like, if you're a writer, I'm going to write with this pen, and I'm going to put my draft copies over here. It's not like that. You figure out how long you're going to do it, you figure out what you're going to accomplish that day, and you figure out when you're going to take your breaks. So when it comes to breaks, you do need a break. You need to let your mind rest, you need to rethink of what you're going to do next, stuff like that. But how specific? Research patiently and deeply, and write carefully and with purpose. And listen right there, with purpose. Your mentality is all based on your purpose. Your why is all your purpose. And when it comes to purpose, we do need that, not only in order to be successful, but I believe to work and want to figure out how to work, you need to have a purpose. You can't just do it. And I know I use about the same examples or the same things, but let's come to work and finding mental tools. You might be thinking, well, David, how do I find mental tools? Well, as crazy as it sounds, this is my answer. You figure out how you're going to be organized. Because organization is huge with anything in life. When it comes to running a business, you have to be organized. When it comes to being a professional athlete, you have to be organized. Because if you look at famous people or famous businessmen or famous athletes and their habits, their habits are all their organization as to how they plan their day. It is exactly precise. You need to be organized and you need to be precise about it. No ifs, ands, or buts, and nothing different happening in your day. Now, yes, you have to deal with curveballs and you have to deal with your day going downhill or to the side and whatnot, but that's also where you have in your head, well, if this happens, I'm going to do it this time. If this happens, then I'm going to do it earlier. Or, hey, if this came up today, I'm just going to do it earlier. So those are your mental tools. You have your emergency tools for if anything goes awry, and then you have your mental tools just to simply stay organized. Now, I really like this book because it talks about stuff like that, because a lot of people don't know how to work, they don't know how to work efficiently, and some of them just simply don't want to work. And my advice to learning how to want to work is, well, like I've said many times in this video and what I just said a few seconds ago, you have to have a purpose. Anything you do in life, you have to have a purpose. So, this was a very good book. It's very specific, and I guess that's the takeaway for this video, is be specific with your goals. Be specific with the tools you're going to use. Be specific in what you're going to get done today. So be very specific. So that's my takeaway for the video. I want to thank you all for watching. This was a very good book. It is deep work, and I hope you all work hard today, and I hope you all work harder than you did yesterday. Thank you all for watching, and you all have a great day.